Tonight, whether you call it football, or soccer, a German American and a German in America dare to call it foosball. German foosball from an American point of view. Let's add some buns to that hamburger and join them for the Schnitzel Boys Deutschland Hour.
Hello. Face myself.
Yeah, very good.
Very
nice. Very nice.
There we
done.
go.
Well
There we
done.
go.
Nicely done. Nicely done. Good evening.
Good evening. I'm on the boards tonight, and I always screw it up. But I thought we were okay that time.
I'm on my phone. I'm not at the usual setup, although the background is, it's not blurry. I have the flowers aren't focused. The plant. Anyway, hello. How are you doing?
Looks good. Looks like you're in a greenhouse ready to grow with information that we have.
Yeah. I mean, I'm in the best mood. I don't know. My team beat Bayern this weekend.
That's the big talk of all the games.
I guess it's not as big a deal as it used to be. Everybody's doing it these days, but it's still a big deal to us.
Well, I'll tell you. I mean, that's the big game of the week. Bochum Bayern. Let's get right into it. And the bigger story, I'm sorry to say, it's Bayern. Like, Bayern deteriorated fast, right? Like, really fast. Like, it only took a week for it to be like, Thomas Tuchel should be fired. We lost the league. Like, last week, we were like, yeah, it's 5 points. Bayer Leverkusen had a big game. But we assumed that was an isolated incident. Here we are 1 week later, a Lazio and a Bochum later, and it's like, what the heck is going on at the whole institution's buried to the ground? There's to Tuchel, Harry Kane's at his words. Like, everyone's bad now all of a sudden.
Harry Kane's going to Chelsea. I read today.
What? When? This summer? That guy's just addicted to not winning titles.
I mean, this was Twitter. I don't think. Right. I don't know. I don't think he's leaving today. But I mean, that's just funny that that comes up. Well, I mean, they got a little unlucky. I hate to. You're starting this story from a Bayern perspective, and if I would look at it from their point of view, I mean, this is a game they probably should have won. I mean, it's like they certainly had enough chances. Manuel Riemann had a great game, especially late. Came up with a couple saves. Upamecano is just a snake bitten kind of guy. It's like, I think he's a good player, but I don't know what is happening. Like, he gave up another penalty and was sent off again. This keeps happening to him.
2 games in a row.
And
well, that's indicative. That's why I'm looking at it from Bayern perspective. Isn't that indicative to something's going on at Bayern? There's some clues. We lost to Bayer Leverkusen pretty handedly, and that was on Tuchel. We put out some bonkers lineup and bench a couple players. And then came Lazio next, right?
Lazio, yeah.
Very
I mean, they have NYCFC legend Tati Castellanos to bring off the bench, so they're no slouches.
Yeah, but like, there's that video I shared on a Schnitzel Boys account, and there's that video of Thomas Tuchel just like yelling at his players to like run forward, run, and not only did they ignore him, like that meant nothing to the players on the field. Bayern München at that moment specifically stopped the ball, slowed it down, turned it around, and passed it back, as if to say, Tuchel, shut up, pretty much. And then you see Thomas Tuchel just do this, and he's sitting his own. Like, it's clear that the players aren't listening to him. He lost the locker room. And when you lose the locker room, you're done. Which is why that happened so fast. I'm like, why is he still there? Jan Christian Driesen, the Bayern CEO, had to come out and be like, yeah, I know it's normally we talk about firing a coach, but not him, which isn't the greatest sort of praise, And then it was Bochum over the weekend, and I forgot who was listening to a podcast. Might have even been Talking Football or one of those podcasts. They're like, Bochum beat them, and Bochum did not have to be at their best to beat them this weekend. Bochum were just playing a tight counterattacking game the way they do. They're playing freely, and they won. Like if I didn't know any better, they were the better team on the night, right? I mean, you were looking at game close
I
to me.
mean, I wouldn't. I think that would be a stretch. I think the xG was like 1.5 to 3.6 or something in favor of Bayern, something like that, and that includes a penalty. So it's not like Bochum had that many great chances. There is a sense of paralysis around this Bayern team. Like they definitely got, especially on the equalizer, just got outmuscled. Like 36-year-old Toto Luzia lets Joshua Kimmich just kind bounce off of his back and delivers the picture perfect assist to Asano. And so there's definitely the sense of there's just a lack of oomph around this team. And especially in the midfield, I would say. And that's a little bit puzzling. You don't. I mean, and I was not optimistic going in. I mean, this is the kind of game usually, where Bayern is like beats up on the poor little team because they have some something to make up. So I really, and especially early on, they looked very strong, and that Musiala goal was pretty nice, nice finish, and then it was they were. I mean, we'll get into that later. There's all these interruptions for protests these days, and that really changed everything. The game stopped for 10 minutes, and Bochum just came back lively, and Bayern just came back sort of paralyzed. And then, and of course, confidence. Once your confidence is low, then I mean, it also happened very quickly. The equalizer, counterattack, and then the kind of corner kick header, and then you could just see like things are tight. Things are not flowing for this Bayern team. But they also have, aside from just confidence, they do not have a good midfield. I mean, that's just the big thing. I think Kimmich got the start this time, but did not look great. Goretzka got the assist early, so it looked like, but then he had a pretty poor game after that.
But right now, everybody for Bayern is in poor shape. Like Upamecano, Harry Kane had his worst game probably against Bochum because he had a pretty good chance right at the end to equalize, and probably a good chance to also put him up ahead at some point else. And up until now, he was nailing those, but he got cold fast because he was out of the picture the last two games. And now here in Bochum, it's the first time he scored the
he scored the 3-2. Yeah, he got one. I mean,
but but we haven't. But Kane's been uncared, and it's not Kane's fault. Against Bayer Leverkusen, he was playing.
I mean, he's had his numbers have been incredible early. Right.
He's just playing deeper.
He's had a little bit. Yeah, he's had a little bit of. He's had a couple of games without scoring. Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, I've mentioned this all year, where Bayern Munich isn't exactly looking as sharp as their numbers will suggest, and it's finally imploded. How long do you think Tuchel has? When's Tuchel going to go bye-bye? Do you think?
Well, who are they going to get? I mean, it's a question of
Hansi Flick
replacements. There's, I guess, that's what I heard. They were reaching out to Hansi Flick. Then Xabi Alonso. Xabi Alonso is now on everybody's list, of course. I mean, that'd be pretty lame. I feel like if he left Leverkusen this summer to go to Bayern, that would make me respect Xabi Alonso 20% less. But
what if he does it this week?
Then that can't be. That is not going to happen. But
hey, never say never.
I guess there's some debate internally whether Hansi Flick still has it. When he was last there, he won the Champions League.
The Hansi Flick thing is, I think him and Uli Hoeneß don't get on, and that's the problem. That's a problem right there. So,
it's also in charge, when he was at Bayern last time, he was very successful, but he was not as successful as a national team coach where he had 2/3 of the same players. So, I don't know. I don't know. I think Yeah, is it the I mean, what is the problem exactly? Is it the coach? Is it I mean, it's the team doesn't look good. It's not like it's not all. It can't all be Tuchel's fault.
Just
And
want to
yeah,
say
David
here.
David Riccio saying he's enjoying the Julian Nagelsmann memes. Yeah, he is. Julian Nagelsmann is. I mean,
He
he
has
will.
his own problems.
He has
Okay,
his own issues. Yeah,
he's
exactly. I
smiling
don't
now,
think
but then when it's time for him to be on the
he
spotlight,
should. He's
Tuchel
gonna
might
be.
start smiling again. So.
So he's got his own difficult assignment. It's true. But for now, I think he's probably happy to not have that job.
Yeah,
I mean,
Jurgen
Jurgen Klinsmann is available. He's he got let go from South Korea, where really the mystery was not why did he get fired. The mystery was how did he get that? Why did they hire him to begin with?
The
That was
Koreans were
so.
complaining all year, and then they were recommending, and the whole time it's like, yeah, we know, morons.
He sucks.
We know this. We thought everybody knew this. Now you know this. So welcome.
No, you
to the
know
club,
it too.
All right. But to defend Klinsmann real quick, which I don't want to, but
What?
Klinsmann was under a lot of scrutiny. But in the Asian Cup, everyone's about Klinsmann and this, and yeah, Korea were laughably bad. It almost looked like they were uncoached. They had no real strategic little ideas or anything.
Oh, what?
But they made the semis. I mean, Qatar.
Yogi Löw missed the plane. He
missed the plane, and he's not picking up the phone even.
Mm-hmm.
But of the traditional Asian teams, correct me if I'm wrong. You think Korea, you think Japan, you think Australia because they're in that confederation. You think maybe Iran, right? Am I missing anybody? Of those 4 teams, who got the furthest? Jurgen Klinsmann.
Well, yeah, but like they still went out in the semis. I mean, at that point, when they're the only team left, it looked like.
Yeah, but where's the inquest of Australia? Where's the inquest of Iran? Where's the inquest of Japan then? If they did worse than Korea,
I think
you know
Japan also. I think Japan also faces a lot of. I don't know what happened there if they fired their coach, but they were definitely pretty disappointed with the outcome.
Klinsmann is available for his next grift. Klinsmann got $8 million for his 1 year in Korea.
He did? Amazing.
Yeah. Klinsmann is just such a good Music Man style grifter. He can't work, and every 2 years he gets $8 million.
He must have a way with the PowerPoint or something. He goes into these interviews and they're like, oh my God, he must do something. Or maybe he just shows highlights from his playing days. I don't know how he does
Korea
it.
Story goes,
he razzles and dazzles.
Well, what happened in Korea, which we learn later, is the head of the KFA is a young German man. He's young.
Ah.
And he's 28 or something. And he's the one who hired Klinsmann because he's a hero of his. Simple as that.
Well, that's pretty
if a
stupid.
soccer player does something great once, they can live an entire career off of it. We see that time and time again. Like Ronaldinho kept getting hired and hired and hired again, even though he was way past his prime. But he won the world footballer once. So, it got him a whole career out of it. Anywho, Bayern Bochum with a good win. I was expecting a draw, but then when I saw Bayern being so lackluster, I'm like, Bochum can do it, and they did.
I thought when they scored the 3-2 with 86 minutes with a lot of stoppage time because of another interruption, I definitely thought we're gonna, because we've done that 3 times this year in home games, conceded a stoppage time equalizer with a lead. So I thought deja vu all over again. It was very stressful. I was very happy to hold on, and 11th place, and completely deserved. I mean, I've said this last week. I think this is a legit mid-table team. This Bochum team. This is not. I mean, it's not. I'm not saying we're going to Europe or whatever, but the last couple of years, I really did not have a lot of faith in the roster, and this year, there's some depth. There's some competition in spots. There's some options offensively and defensively. There's the midfield's very good as long as just whatever drugs Toto Lucia is taking at his advanced age, he's just got to keep taking them for another
Ozempic.
for another little while, because he's really instrumental. But a very, very solid team, and so
11th place.
this was
That's a purple ribbon, man. Print yourself a little purple ribbon out. It's nice.
a purple ribbon.
Yeah, it's not gold or silver or bronze. But 11th place, that's a mauve
like
ribbon,
11th.
right? It's a little mauve ribbon.
We
11th place on
we're not expecting a trophy, but you can
It's not
see
a
how
It's not a trophy, it's a ribbon.
you can.
But it's
you
better than
can
nothing.
You can see how the careful budgeting, etc. Now in year 3 of the Bundesliga, there's, I guess, enough money now to be mid-table. So if all keeps going well, I mean, it looks like I mean, I think we need a couple more wins, probably 2 or 3 more wins will do it in terms of not getting relegated. So
yeah, it's only February, baby. You did it. Well done.
yeah, it's looking very good.
So to answer your question, it's not just Tuchel. Just like it wasn't Nagelsmann. There's something up with the Bayern brass. It's a little weird. I think there's a weird environment going on.
Yeah,
so,
I mean, I think they've not signed well. They haven't. Yeah, I mean,
well,
I
don't know if that's super fair. I mean, a couple weird ones. Like Sadio Mane didn't work out. Eric Dyer's a little weird. But Harry Kane and Kim are great signings. They're doing it right. They're just playing poorly.
Harry
Kane and Kim. Daniel,
Oh,
I
yeah.
can never remember his full name. Daniel Min Kim Hin is his name.
True.
I don't wanna
Yeah.
say that, but the guy from Napoli. They were great signings, and they were both in great shape for the first half of the season. So,
But they also, I mean, they needed help. They did not have good.
Right.
David Alaba left, and so they I mean, they were just replacing people. I mean, it's I think the midfield is the issue there, especially defensively.
But yeah, I don't think
they don't have a really strong defensive midfielder. And Joshua Kimmich, we've talked about him in the context of the national team, where he's like sort of he's one of those high usage players that is not quite good enough considering how much room he takes up,
But the other,
and he does not defend.
I'm not buying any of this, by the way. That's overstated. Like, are you telling me that Thomas Tuchel and Bayern are burning to the ground because he couldn't get Paulinho from Fulham? Is it simple? Is that why he has?
I think it's part of it. I think it's part. He doesn't have. Who's the defensive midfielder? Who's the defensive midfielder? Who's his number 6?
I mean, Kimmich is supposed to be his number 6.
Yeah, he doesn't defend really, and he's not a great passer either. He's not a ball winner.
And they have this new kid from the academy, Pavlovic, doing it. And they're failing a little bit short, but it's Bayern München, it's the Bundesliga. They have so many other pieces to use. Like, if he wants to be a great coach for a great club, he needs to figure it out. So, I'm just not leaning in. Like, they won the titles without a number 6 last year, and the year before that. So,
it's pretty cool. I mean, they shouldn't have won it last year. I mean, they lost. They Dortmund lost it. They didn't win it. Dortmund lost it. So,
and Dortmund didn't even have a defense last year.
So you're saying it's just Tuchel? They get another coach and everything's hunky dory?
I'm not saying it's Tuchel. I'm saying there's a bigger issue with the upper staff, but Tuchel's definitely failing right now. He's not great. I never really liked Tuchel, but I don't want to get into the specifics of Bayern right now. We can save it for another time.
You have something up your sleeve.
I have something up my sleeve. We have an exciting guest tonight. A guy I've wanted on for a while. A guy I've been listening to for years about the Bundesliga. I cut a little bit of his intro out to save a little bit of time. So I'm just going to say, we have our guest, Matt Hermann, who was for many, many years the German Bundesliga correspondent for Deutsche Welle. He also worked for, I think, in England for BT Sport for a bit. When they were getting the Bundesliga, and now he is a professor at University of Wisconsin-Madison. He teaches sports business, sports media. I believe sports media, not sports business. And he runs, or he's a co-host of the podcast Talking Foosball, which is entering its 11th year this year.
Amazing, right?
Amazing. Anyway, I got him on the pod. He hopped on, and pretty much I wanted to ask an expert, which he is, a deep dive on all this protest stuff, because we've talked about it before, but it's heating up. I mean, games are being stopped. We saw the RC cars in Humboldt,
Yeah, a
smoke
lot of
blowing out, tennis balls and chocolate. They're being heard, and we need to talk about that.
I'm interested in what he has to say. Yeah.
All right. Without further ado, Herman. A lot of our fans probably know you from your a podcast, Talking Foosball, that you've done for several years now. How long have you guys been doing that now?
I believe this is actually this is year 11 for Talking Foosball.
Oh, where does the time fly? Fly? Prior to that, you were a Bundesliga correspondent for Deutsche Welle, the German global news broadcaster, right? And how did that come about? You were in Berlin. Were you an American journalist student that flew to Berlin to get involved in the German sports scene, or how did that happen exactly?
If only the route had been that direct. No, it was totally a lot more circuitous than that. I mean, I studied journalism as a master's student. I didn't actually do it until at that level, and worked in New York for a few years after finishing. I went to a journalism school there, but wasn't really happy. Wasn't really happy with the jobs I was getting, and I was like, I just want to go out into the world and report. So I got this.
What kind of gigs? Sorry to interrupt, but what kind of gigs did you get in New York?
I mean, they were good. But they were like all sort of pretty low level, like editorial assistant, fact checker. Applied for some like sort of personal assistant jobs.
Sure.
I mean, it was not a bad like set of things I was doing. I just was getting a little bored, basically.
Right.
And I wanted to go out and try a little bit more sort of direct reporting. And I ended up going on a journalist exchange fellowship to Germany. And also the same summer was the World Cup in 2006, and had been there previous and seen what a nice place Germany could be, especially when everybody's in a really good mood because of the World Cup. But I was just sort of in a rut in many ways. Went to Germany and sort of fell into the sports thing because I started working at Deutsche Welle in the radio, and they just needed more folks to be doing what we called then the Sports Report, the creatively titled Sports Report radio show, which is probably the first thing that you heard or of me anyway, if you were a DW listener in those days.
I was.
They wanted more people who were, who understood sports, who loved sports, who were willing to work on Sundays because that's when the show ran. And it just sort of snowballed from there. I mean, I was always excited about the Bundesliga and having it as an option because, the age that I am, I grew up principally in, the years when I was in school and in high school were like literally the years when North America didn't even have like a Division I soccer league.
Right,
like I was in college by the time MLS started. So like, I can't say that I had that formative boyhood, soccer watching experience.
You didn't follow the Charleston Battery religiously back in the early 90s? The late
80s? No. I mean, I'm a DC area person originally, so DC United was the team that I was excited for them to emerge, and it was exciting to see them emerge in the way that they did. They were pretty good right out of the gate, which was nice. But like, I had done a year of college in England in the 90s and got into the sort of soccer culture and watching it pretty much every week on the television or trying to get to the stadium, although I was in Manchester, so tickets for United were incredibly expensive because this was like them at the beginning of their like dynasty period. And City had just been relegated from the championship down another rung, so they had basically gone from second tier to third tier the year that I was there, and it was just a very depressed fan base. So like, I didn't get to go to that many games. Let's just say.
It's just funny you describe Manchester that way. It's so alien to what it is now. I mean, how times have changed, right?
Oh my God, yeah. But yeah, I mean, ended up at Deutsche Welle, sort of made sports my niche, which I was very happy to do. I mean, I've been basically somebody really into soccer and soccer culture for most of my adult life, and getting to live in a place where that's really a big deal, and sort of live it not only as a fan, because I did go to tons of games outside of my journalistic work, but to go and report, and to go make interesting content about the Bundesliga was quite cool.
Yeah, that's really cool. So essentially, when you were there, that got you into the Bundesliga, and Hertha Berlin sort of became your de facto club pretty much because you were based in Berlin, right?
Yeah, I mean, I was actually, for the first while, I was based in Bonn, which is where the radio was mostly made. But I was already kind of committed to Hertha. I mean, I had been to maybe, I don't know, 3 or 4 games by the time I actually started working at DW in Bonn. And this was actually, Hertha got off to a really fast start. I had seen them play really well. I was already inclined to like them because I had, been on a trip earlier in life to Berlin and had a very good time, and had bought myself a totally random souvenir, which I actually just found in a box at my parents' house. It was like it was a winter hat. It was like a winter hat, a Hertha hat. When I was just basically like, who's the team around here? Like this one.
And at that time, it was Hertha. But if you ask that same question,
baby.
Okay.
It still is,
that's
baby.
my question today that I challenge you.
Yeah,
if you're in Copenhagen, yeah.
They're the team of Copenhagen. Okay,
right.
I'll give them that.
True. Hertha is the team of Jürgen Klinsmann's grandpa, as he professed before he became their coach for 3 weeks, or their
before he
6 months. Yeah,
wandered off to Schwaben.
But let's get into our President's Day topic, which is the fact that there's been these protests going on.
Mm-hmm.
And, we saw last weekend in Hamburg, they had the RC cars with smoke. It started with them with signs, then it escalated to coin throwing. And now we got cars driving around, and they are stopping games or delays for 20, 30, 40 minutes sometimes, pretty much getting their voice heard. They're getting louder and louder and louder. And, I hope I'm not putting you on the spot. Why don't we give a little rundown on kind of where that came from, a little bit of background? It's, you probably know more about the specifics than I do, but essentially it's because the German Bundesliga, it wants to be open to foreign investment. And originally the old plans, it was not related to this marketing company. I remember the old plan was related to an infrastructure. I'm looking for injection, right? I think they were going to take this money, and one of the stadiums was going to get a newer PA. Other stadiums were going to buy virtual ad boards as opposed to the old school ad boards, that kind of stuff. And then the German team said no to that, so they revised it. And the current proposal that was voted for in September, October, or maybe even November, I don't remember. It's an 8% stake for a foreign equity firm for $1 billion seed money to start this new marketing arm, which is going to set up for some sort of global digital distribution platform and social media campaign, whatever the heck that means. I'm assuming they're trying to ape an Apple TV situation, or I'll stop talking.
Yeah, no, I don't think that they're wrong to go after that, because just from my own experience, and obviously you've had your own experience, and people in any number of other countries have had theirs, but I would say for the most part, the Bundesliga is not particularly well broadcast or marketed outside of Germany. Personally, I guess I've experienced 3 different sort of regimes. One being the bad old days of Goal TV, which was largely happening. They were broadcasting the Bundesliga while I was still in Germany. When I would come home, I would attempt to try and access it through there, to little avail. I've experienced the Fox networks broadcast of the Bundesliga, and now ESPN, and each one. Obviously, Gold TV just had the limitation of no one having the channel,
right.
But Fox and ESPN seem to approach the product somewhat differently. But when it really came down to it, it's ESPN has the advantage of playing all the games on their app, and you can sort of pick and choose. And this season, you can get the Goal Arena, similar to the Konferenz that you can get in Germany, but all the wraparound programming that you might be used to from watching, the NBA on TNT or watching a American football on a Sunday. All that wraparound programming that they've offered, I did that a little bit in England when I was sort of splitting time between Britain and Germany. My wife was teaching there. And when they first started broadcasting on BT Sport in England, they did a lot of wraparound programming. Hence they called up, D-listers like me. They just need to fill those desks.
C-listers, come on now. Let's a little respect here. C-listers.
And they basically, their interest in putting any production money or effort into that waned very quickly. And it seems that happened with Fox. It's happened with ESPN. ESPN's doing a bit more this year, but it's, it's like Kay Murray and Ale Moreno.
Right.
Like
and Ale Moreno doesn't even, I love him to death. He's actually the alma mater of my school. But they just grabbed the guy. He has no Bundesliga experience. He's got MLS experience. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. Obviously he's an experienced broadcaster and he is a player who understands like professional atmospheres, but like I don't think he really it seems like he's had a bit of a learning experience over the course of the season with the Bundesliga. And like my personal preference, like his sort of like tough guy curmudgeon act wears thin very, very quickly with me. So like I typically don't watch that programming. But anyway, like you can always tell where a broadcaster's priorities lie when it comes to creating wraparound content and maybe even creating like pre-prepared content, which is, stuff that you play at halftime, those little montages about, the DFL produces stuff like that and broadcasters can choose to take that. And some of them do. Sometimes they want to fill a little time. But ultimately, like, I understand why the DFL wants to create its own like broadcast portal and why it wants to sort of market itself somewhat more boldly, let's just say, because their partner broadcasters sure as hell ain't doing it. And I know that, like, at least in the mind of the people who are running the German Football League, the whole game is about sort of closing that gap with the Premier League. And to a lesser extent, I guess, La Liga, which, I don't know that is making all that much more money than the Bundesliga from overseas rights, but just for linguistic reasons, similar to the linguistics reasons that make, the EPL so popular in the United States. Like, people in Latin America they tend to consume a lot of La Liga when it comes to non-domestic football. So like Germany feels like it just needs to do something bold and like some sort of quantum leap needs to happen. And they think that maybe this investor thing is the thing that's going to do that. And I think the fans are first like, they question whether the Bundesliga needs to take this bold step or, make this quantum leap because they kind of like a lot of their, intra-German football culture the way it is. And also, and this, I was kind of thinking about this, after you sent me this mail and wanted to talk about this, that like, I feel like the people at the DFL see Bayern Munich as the solution, which is to say, Bayern is the one team that has its shit together, brand wise, marketing wise, like sort of community outreach. And I don't just mean, their own community, but like the whole broader global football fan community. Like they understand these. I
remember, sorry to interrupt. I remember when they opened offices in New York because I was in New York at the time, and even emailed them to try to work there. And they wrote me back saying our entire staff is going to come from Germany. They weren't hiring any locals. I was like, yeah, well, I can dream, I guess. But
they did. I know some of the people who were locals who worked.
And then later, my roommate started working for them.
Oh, who's your roommate?
A guy named Patrick Inferna. I don't know if you know him. He's a marketing. He worked with Kick TV on YouTube, and he's also a freelance like marketing guy. So I just remember he texted me once that he was on a private jet with Thomas Muller as they were doing the U.S. tour, and I was just so jealous. Just like, like good for you, bud. He was doing. I couldn't even describe what he was doing. Social media, consultancy, sports. Something super fancy that I can't get my hair up. But anyway, I didn't mean to interrupt. But yeah, Bayern Munich had offices, and I was talking about earlier. They have on Saturday mornings. They are the club that does have groups around, just
absolutely,
like the Prem does. Yeah,
like basically, I think the DFL seems to, the way that I'm framing it is like they think of Bayern as the solution. They think Bayern are the one team who's sort of operating in this like the big pond, as it were. Like they're the one who can sort of sell themselves globally. They're the ones who can attract top players. They're the ones who are sort of, you know, they expect to be in the last 8 or even 4 of the Champions League every year. Whether or not they do it is another matter. And I think for a lot of German football fans, and I mean, I might even sort of include myself in this situation. I think Bayern's the problem. They're not the solution. Like the solution is not to sort of pump up the league and get global business savvy. The solution is to retrench and to like look inward, look at the sort of on-site fan experience and the sort of like genuine local community ties, and like really hold fast to that stuff and maintain that and put it to the forefront. And like it's a really tough thing because like I understand that people who are trying to run the professional arms of these clubs, and we know all about 50+1 and the way that German clubs have to be officially controlled by their members and all that stuff. Leave that to one side. These are commercial businesses, and when you're a commercial business who has ambition globally, like of course you want to be pumped up and do your best and have your own broadcast portal and this sort of social interaction integration and like pie in the sky. You want to play with the big boys, but like ultimately a lot of fans in Germany, especially the ultras who are leading this protest, they don't want that at all.
Right.
Like, they don't care about it. Like it's a fringe benefit for them. They just want to go to the football, pay a very reasonable price for the experience, and experience that.
One beer,
yeah,
get in the stadium, sing for 90 minutes, go home, and that's church
have
for them. So
a genuine collective experience,
right? Which they do great, by the way. Like I was there in October, and it's funny. These clubs are bigger and the stadiums are bigger, but it's definitely less frills than an MLS game. I'm at LAFC, and you have your app, and you have your million different food trucks, and you got the Korean tacos over there, the nachos over there. You got Will Ferrell with a bird on the field. MLS, it's a blast. And then you go to Nuremberg, where I went to, Max Morlock Stadion, ancient stadium, running track. It's just a bunch of old school plastic. They don't even fold up. They're just the plastic seats or the sit on. So, and you get in there, they have a food truck outside, just beer, just Wurst. That's it. And it's much simpler. And my experience in Bayern was very similar. I went to Allianz Arena to watch a game. Same thing. You get Weiss Bratwurst or Rot Bratwurst, right? So you get options. Paulana, which is their sponsor beer, so you get Paulana. And that's really it. And then you go and you watch. It's an amazing time. I'm not saying it isn't. But as far as like frills go, because I went to SoFi to watch the College Bowl, and it's just night and day. The fan experience here in the States, it's frills full. And a place like Germany, it's a little more old school. It's a little more lower frills. But you're saying that the part of this new maybe marketing arm is to also address that kind of stuff as well, make it a little more hip in the stadium.
This is the part about the protests that I think is a little bit unclear or a little bit muddled, let's just say. Like the thing that really precipitated it, you brought it up at the beginning of this segment, like it's about this investor, whether the investor's gonna buy into the DFL or not. That was the thing that sort of brought this protest wave on. But like this is a tension that had been sort of brewing in German football for ages. And like it's not entirely clear what aspects of perceived changes these fans have the most problem. Do they have the most problem with like maybe the broadcast style being changed, with the in-stadium fan experience being different? Do they think that you're going to have a situation like you do in Spain, where like there are no concurrent games and the entire match day is just like taking place one after the other to give more broadcast windows? Are they concerned that the ticket prices are going to go up? Are they concerned with a combination of all of these things, or some but not others? Like it's a much more inchoate, like sort of somewhat. I don't know. When it comes to like people who are doing protests. Like, you should have demands, specific demands that can
Right.
be, either achieved or not achieved. I don't necessarily think that they've done a great job of that. I mean,
Right.
it seems to me that a lot of them, the demand that they want is vote no on investors, which
Right.
that's kind of already passed us by. They're hoping to get another vote going.
Well,
But
on
it's not.
that,
Yeah, go ahead.
there's a bigger issue too of distrust between the club members and the establishment, right? Because right now we're getting quotes from Watzke and so forth, where they'll be like, they'll have no influence, kein Einfluss, no influence, and fans are like, BS. They're 8% owners. They get rights, right? An equity firm will get rights to that, and it leads to stuff you're talking about. And then if you want to get more specific, there's that Hanover 96 situation where the club members voted no, but then Martin Kim, the CEO, because of his own interests, went to the board and said, "Oh, we said yes, actually." And the fans, if that's true, what else is true? So if other clubs are like, "Well, hold on, like how accurate was this vote of ours that we had at the end of the last quarter of last year?" It seems there's definitely a trust between the fans and the establishment that this is also brewing a little bit.
Yeah, and even the fact that these votes, I mean, basically, it was just incumbent on a bunch of journalists to ask, "How did you vote? How did you vote? How did you vote?" to everybody.
Right. That's the
And
transparency.
they told them, and we assume that they told them rightly. Like, can someone explain why this most public of sports and most public of like areas of commercial business, why they're having secret ballots here?
Right.
Like, should it not just be, an open vote?
Right.
And then, we don't have to sort of get into this skullduggery aspect. But yeah, I think there's definitely been a sense that like the DFL has been talking past the fans for a very long time. And I think, I don't know, I was listening to a good German language podcast, Rasenfunk, which, the host was basically trying to, talk his way through these issues as well. And I think his main take was that this is a long-standing frustration among fans that like they don't think that the Bundesliga is actually presenting a good product. Presenting a product that like excites people. I mean, excites people. Yes, people still go. Yes, people still want to be with their friends, their fellow fans. Yes, people have like a specific club that like they're committed to, but like something has sort of broken down when it comes to like the entire system in terms of both like one team has won the league 11 years in a row. That is a terrible, terrible thing for a league. Like you're getting into, real bush league territory with that. And also there's a lot of teams that people don't want to see in the league. This was not, coming from Rasenfunk, but I think that there's something to this. Sometimes I look at the league, especially now that my team, Hertha, is not in the league anymore. There's just a lot of teams that I don't really particularly want to watch, either because they're, quote unquote, smaller clubs that don't have a lot of tradition or like history, or because they are, frankly, from small towns that don't really ring anybody's bell, like Hoffenheim or Heidenheim or Zinsheim, for that matter. Like, when you see Augsburg versus Heidenheim on the list of fixtures, and you're not like a real sicko,
right.
You don't want to watch that,
right? For a neutral, it's not a neutral's paradise, right? Yeah. I know the aspect of that coming from an American point of view is what clubs do Americans play for? So you want to, want to chime in, but the minute they're gone, we have, like I said, we have a big presence in the Eredivisie now. I really don't care a lot about. I have nothing against the Eredivisie. I wish them the best, but the only reason I'm really into AZ Alkmaar right now is because of Taylor Booth or whatever. Who does he play for? Well, anyway, I'm watching a lot of PSV because we have the three Americans there. And, I'd watch Hercules because Luca de la Torre was there. So when I think of in Germany, I plug into. I would plug in, like, I'd watch Fortuna Dusseldorf games to see how Zach Steffen was doing a couple of years ago. That kind of,
Yeah.
if that would be my main interest. And once upon, and with Augsburg, I really wanted to follow Ricardo Pepi for 6 months, which ended up being a little bit of a disaster for him, unfortunately, and for everybody involved. But
Yeah.
again, he's found his footing in Holland, good for him and whatnot. But that's where, like, overseas perspective, that's probably where the interest lies, is following your countrymen, Whereas in England, there's legit Crystal Palace fans who've never been to England
Yeah.
in their life. They really care about the club, and it's like they pulled that off somehow.
I mean, and that's where the Bundesliga wants to get. I mean, I think, yes, maybe let's take another couple of clubs as an example. Like, Fulham has this long history with American
Right.
players, or Everton has had a couple of American players who have been sort of impactful there. Those clubs ultimately might have sort of seeded the ground with those players, but they're probably at this point, whatever American fans they have, for the most part, are just legacy fans, and that's maybe they're going to be fans for life, at least in some small way. But ultimately, I feel like you want to get to the point where it's not dependent on players,
Right.
or you look at some of these clubs that have very large American followings. Many of them have never had a significant American player,
Right.
and it's just the romance of the great brand of Arsenal or whatever the case may be.
Right. Yeah. They just, I mean, I was around for Gold TV. I was around for Fox Sports World. I think it really started with Fox Sports World when it comes to England. They did such a good job. They just did, the marketing guys, because when I was coming up watching soccer back in my old days, the 90s, Serie A was king. It was all about the Serie A, right? The best players went to Italy. And I grew up in Latin America. We talked about overseas. So it was all Barcelona, Real, it was all La Liga, Serie A, and the local league. Liga Serie A and the local league. And the Serie A shot themselves in the foot with the scandals they've had and whatnot a little bit. And the Serie A is, I guess, still playing a little catch up. And La Liga has another team that keeps the other team honest. Now, granted, those days might be numbered with what's going on in Barcelona, unfortunately. But where Bayern Munich is there aren't significant Americans in those major clubs, really. And it's been a one-horse race for a while. And it's like, who wants to watch a one-horse race, right?
Yeah, and there's also something. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, is they pitched ideas before. They had a new DFL CEO a year or two ago who pitched the playoffs, remember, and like stuff like that.
Yeah.
And if they're saying no to Monday games, because remember 2 years ago they added Monday games, those global rights, the fans are like, no, we work Mondays, there's no Monday games, so they got rid of them. And like, if they say no to that, they're definitely going to say no to the playoffs.
Yeah, and
stuff like that.
I feel like playoffs, they've come into place in a number of smaller leagues, but it's the force of inertia is really hard to combat. I mean, I don't know that this is at the forefront of everybody's mind, but I really think it should be. I think, other than the advantage that the Premier League has had with its the language in which it's based, which is a hugely influential language globally, they have actually, despite the fact that there's plenty of fractiousness and conflict within the Premier League about all kinds of issues, they started on the basis of giving teams equal footing when it comes to revenue sharing and television rights deals, et cetera. They didn't dick around by saying, like, Manchester United and Liverpool and I don't know exactly which teams had this most juice in the early 90s when they were negotiating this, but they didn't say, no, we need to have more, you need to give us more money than you give to Bolton or you give to Blackburn, or to name another team that it's no good anymore but was good then. The Bundesliga and almost all these other leagues, I mean, Serie A, like, barely even had a collective television contract at that time. La Liga, I don't know if they've completely sorted that out, or if they're still partly independent. I mean, Bayern basically has the league in a stranglehold. If you're on top, you want to stay on top. I get it, but the league is not going to sort of mature as a competition and mature as a long-term international television product until it can put more teams on an equal footing than they have now. And it's not going to happen overnight. There's going to be a bunch of dumb people doing dumb stuff because there always is.
Right.
But like, if they would just start from the standpoint of, okay, we are legit in this together. We are sharing this 18 ways. All the money that comes in, we share equally 18 ways.
Right.
That might be a way to move in the right direction. But, it's not just Bayern. It's going to be a bunch of other Traditionsvereine who are like,
Right.
going to say, we're Werder Bremen. Why shouldn't we get more money than Heidenheim? And it's like, actually,
I mean, but that's another thing, especially with what's going on at Bayern with Uli Hoeneß. There is a little bit of and this is a German thing, there's a little bit of an old boys club involved and a mafia involved, right? And Uli Hoeneß, I mean, I'm learning more and more how much power that guy just wields. I mean, he is just a Machiavelli strategist, and he's like doing, more power to him. But like, there's that kind of stuff. But let me, because I know you got to run in a bit. Let me just boil down a few questions. So I think this new global platform, whatever it is specifically, let's pretend it's like I was in Munich in October and I was staying with someone who loves American baseball. How does he watch baseball? MLB.TV, the app. It's a global app. It's got all the games. It's how you watch baseball. He had the American broadcast. He had the Fox broadcast, whoever's the subcontractor for the broadcast, watching it live HD, right? Is that what this new Bundesliga global platform is kind of trying to be? Is it trying to be like a global TV package for everybody with German content?
I think that is an option on the table. I mean, another thing that has always been very difficult with the sort of soccer television landscape is like, not only do they like try and sell a different package to every single country, a different host broadcaster or partner broadcaster, but they'll even like sell, highlights rights.
Right.
Like, why? Like, that's why posting Bundesliga clips on Twitter can like get you put into Alcatraz.
I got a strike. You know what my funniest strike was? I was complaining about the ESPN broadcast, of which I've got plenty of complaints, but apparently we're spoiled. Because in Canada, they don't even show half the games, even though it's the zone.
Yeah, in Britain as well. Broadcast. Yeah, in Britain, they barely put any games on.
But I was showing it was like squigglies. You know how when the satellite interrupts, a bunch of green boxes everywhere? It was like that for like 5 minutes. I put a picture of the green boxes right on my TV, and I was like, look at this Bundesliga. And then the Bundesliga removed it because I was sharing Bundesliga content that I wasn't supposed to be sharing. It's like, well, you even struck me after an unrecognizable screen. You knew exactly what it was, and you struck me.
Yeah, and it's very strange because, like,
let people watch the highlights, right? What's the deal?
Exactly. Yeah. And because they want to make a few bucks by selling the highlights to the Sportschau, to Sky in Germany, to I think in Germany on the internet, at least for a while, I don't know if this is still true, like the Bild-Zeitung newspaper had like exclusive rights to Bundesliga highlights for 24 or 48 hours or something like that.
Right.
Like they have all these like separate windows and separate territories and separate like I think it would take a big sea change in like philosophy for them to understand that like you just actually need to take the blinders off, take the leash off, and be like, we are the place. We are owning our own content. This is the portal. You can get it here. You can post it elsewhere as long as you're sending people back to this platform.
Right.
I think that there's a lot of German minds are going to need to be blown before that's going to happen. I would love it for it to happen, but
Which sort of leads to my next question, right? I guess my big question is. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, you're probably closest to me. Up until the late 90s, the Bundesliga clubs were considered nonprofits, right? And then in 2000, they invented the Deutsches Fußballliga, the DFL, which is sort of the for-profit marketing arm of the Bundesliga, right? If I'm not mistaken. Maybe even German soccer at large, maybe even the DFB.
That's the top two divisions. First and second Bundesliga.
First and second. So Bundesliga 1 and 5. So now I ask myself, they are the marketing arm. What's all this seed money needed? Can't the marketing arm just be like, all right, new strategy? You know what I mean? Like, what's the dependency on this foreign investment can't the already established marketing arm of the leagues, can't they just make these changes from the money that they already have from within themselves? Do you understand what I'm saying? Like, what is the need for this foreign $1 billion injection for this?
In part because it's a scale thing. I mean, I think some of the projects that they want to launch, if in fact they do get around to launching this sort of 360-degree everything, all highlights games.
Are all the games going to be
all
in
the
YouTube
time.
VR where I can just do this? That would be amazing. I'd
Right.
sign up for that right away.
It's Thomas Miller's going to wear a backpack with a GoPro.
Yeah, GoPro. I'll just sold. Sign me up. Sign me up.
No, I think part of it is just that the project that they expect to launch might be very expensive, and they would need money for them. I think part of it is a sort of a know-how thing. I mean, the people who work at the DFL in marketing and in content creation, like, they're good, they do good work, but there is more know-how and more stuff out in the world than they can encompass. And I feel like bringing in outside ideas and outside scale makes sense. And I think it also has a little bit to do with just, connections. I mean, sometimes when these like outside either marketing companies or private equity or the people who very often, like an event, will sell its rights to a sort of a broker who then sells to broadcasters and sells to commercial partners. Some of it is about connections. Some of it, I think that they just want to hire people who can get them in the rooms that they want to be in with various global brands and global broadcasters to actually put some more heft behind their product, which they, I think, have struggled to do on their own.
And it's boiled down to, I think I heard reports a few months ago of there being 8 different firms, a lot of them from New York, competing. But the protests have worked. I know Blackstone pulled out. And it seems to be there's only one firm left, CVC, the Luxembourg firm. I mean, I'm not behind the scenes. Maybe there's more going on than I realize. And if I'm not mistaken, CVC has a huge stake in La Liga already, right? Are they the firm that's invested in La Liga? Or maybe I'm mistaking that. But I think in their portfolios, they already have Fußball in their portfolio. And I guess the concern is if they get an 8% stake in the Bundesliga, the whole point of an equity firm is they slash, don't they? Don't they slash, try to raise the equitable value of their property so they can sell it off later? Isn't sort of that the whole idea?
It certainly has been in many firms' experience. I would hesitate to necessarily commit them to any one philosophy. I do think it is interesting that CVC, and you're right, they are the company that made a very similar investment into La Liga. And I think if we see how much more play La Liga seems to get on ESPN than Bundesliga does, maybe they're getting in the right rooms.
Right.
They're the ones who created the fan experience place or whatever in New York City. Bundesliga would love to have that sort of thing. The other thing that I see, and this sort of spills over into some of the talk that we had about Super League a few years ago when that fizzled out. I was always puzzled by the inclusion of English teams in the Super League. And their fans, to their credit, were the ones who sort of kicked and screamed the most and got the project killed. Of course, German clubs didn't show any interest anyway,
didn't even participate.
Also to their credit.
Right.
But the way I see European football shaking out, like, the EPL is already the Super League, and every other league is trying to do everything they can to counter that power. And I, obviously, like, CVC is not going to create the pan Hispano-German Super League, but, like,
it's not a bad idea.
No, it's not.
I would love that. I would love for Bayern Munich to be in the same league with Barcelona and Real Madrid.
Sure.
Honest.
I mean, I think there will be changes to European football over the next couple of generations. It's always been that way.
Right.
But, like, if I would have to guess, I would think that, like, it's going to be the rest of the continent doing something in opposition or separate from England, because England, they've already got their Super League. They've already got every single box ticked that all the other clubs and leagues are looking to tick.
And Leicester won it. So it's like, in addition to everybody being a super club, the smaller club won the title in addition to that. So it's like they got their cake and they're eating it too. So, but granted, all of football, including England, is being monopolized by the haves and have-not. Right now in England, despite everyone's talking about different clubs, it's Manchester City. Man City all day, every day. They're winning every season. And in Spain, it's Real Madrid, and in France, it's PSG. In Germany, it's Bayern München. They're just, for whatever reason, one club is starting to take all the resources in a lot of different scenarios and situations, So, yeah, it's interesting to see. Just, you're right. But to me, that means change is afoot somewhere in equal distribution of sharing revenues or whatever needs to happen. There just is this interesting situation of one have and all the other have not trying to get in there and getting creative and doing their thing. Like we're seeing with Bayer Leverkusen, honestly, which are an absolute godsend, aren't they? Imagine if Bayern Munich were running away with it again this season, the kind of conversations that we'd be having, I think Bayer Leverkusen are doing a good job keeping the Bundesliga honest right now.
Yeah, and it also shows, there's been plenty of people who have done empirical studies about, how much you pay players, how big your budget is,
right,
versus how many points you get per game. It correlates pretty closely. But it doesn't correlate 100%, and it doesn't account for either especially good performances from players, coaches, squad planners, or particularly poor performances from players, coaches, squad planners. I personally think certainly in terms of points and expected goals and all that stuff, Bayern are not that bad this year,
right?
But Leverkusen are just better.
They're excellent. Yeah,
they're spectacular.
They're the talk of the town, and Xabi Alonso is the song of the summer, isn't he?
Yeah, it's almost a bummer that they're not in the Champions League this year.
Yeah,
because they might win it.
Yeah, they're the German Invincibles. We got Invincibles take 2 right now. But so I know I don't want to take up any more of your time, but so I guess the only follow up I have is, as a Hertha BSC supporter, you guys were recently invested by 777 Partners, right? And 777 Partners, which is a New York based equity firm, I believe. They were, or maybe not New York based, but they're
Miami.
Miami. Okay.
And everything that represents.
Oh, even better. But they were also up for the Bundesliga investment, I think. They were on that short list or something. I know it's only been a few months, but what can you tell me about the 777 partnership with Hertha? Have you already seen some results, or is it you have to wait a little bit before you see what that means? Because Hertha was close to losing their license, right? It was kind of it was like a last minute. They came in as angels and sort of saved the club.
Yeah, basically, this is, in the grand scheme of things, this is actually the third different investor that has had a significant stake in Hertha. The first one, KKR, which is a New York, private equity firm, they only were in for about 4 or 5 years before Hertha basically bought their shares back from them, in order to then sell them to Lars Windhorst.
The Lars Windhorst thing, which ended up kind of also being a little bit of a fraud.
Yeah, and that, KKR, kind of a neutral deal. Hertha didn't lose any money on that, and KKR didn't seem to make too many onerous demands. Windhorst was a disaster. That was a bunch of money coming in very quickly and spent very foolishly. And so foolishly, in fact, that combined with, certain after effects of the pandemic, but yeah, Hertha was in some trouble. They would have been in even more trouble if Windhorst hadn't been there during the pandemic. But the finances were in a bad state. And 777 came in and bought the shares pretty much off of Windhorst instead of from Hertha. So Hertha tried to sort of present itself as having a big say in that particular deal, but really they were kind of we're just happy to be rid of Lars Windhorst. And I'm not sure if that attitude will hold if Hertha don't sort of see a more sustainable turnaround in results. I mean, I think 777 is a pretty dodgy operator. They seem to be involved in some pretty dodgy stuff, including, weird structured payments stuff that's sometimes people have taken them to court as being, fraudulent. And, they have, not had a good, sort of financial performance in recent years. So I worry, I mean, it hasn't really brought about much of anything other than Hertha keeping its license. So in that respect, hurrah.
Right.
But like, I think long term, they need to think about an exit strategy from 777 because it doesn't seem like a stable, sustainable business that's going to be great for them.
Yeah, and you see with Schalke the troubles they're in, and they beggars can't be choosers. I think Schalke needs any angel they can get their hands on as well, and also leads to the fact that once upon a time the Bundesliga lauded itself on its financial stability. And for the most part, that's still okay. I mean, COVID didn't help anybody. Obviously, COVID was a hit for everybody. But, it's not as financially stable as it once was, between, the Bundesliga gets a big criticism of being a farm league. And a club like Borussia Dortmund's supposed to be the Burger King to Bayern Munich's McDonald's, right? But their bottom line is clear. They need to make money off player sales. That's what they do. I mean, if winning the title happens, they're not against that. They're fine with it. But they will not make any financial risks in order to win titles. Watzke's been very clear on that. And more power to them because they almost went out of business and they have philosophies of where, blah, blah, blah. But, if all the clubs are just focusing on their bottom line, Bayern Munich's the only club left who can actually spend money to win titles. They're like, we have money. We're going to buy Kim and we're going to buy Mazraoui and we're going to buy Harry Kane. We need to win. So, no other German club can do that right now. They have to be very creative. So
they're playing a different game.
Yeah. So are you thumbs up for the investment? You think you're excited about it? Or are you more on the German fans where it's like, the football, let's keep it the way it is? If you had to use personally, if you had to put your name in the hat.
I would say I'm mostly with the fans. There are certain steps that I would love to see the Bundesliga take when it comes to sort of interfacing with foreign fans, because I am one these days.
Right.
I would love to have a better marketed, better presented Bundesliga, but depending on what might need to be sacrificed to make that happen, I can't say that I think it's worth it. I mean, I think German football, the way that it's sort of set up as a sort of a community asset rather than a pure commercial business is a great thing. I wish we had much more of it in professional sports rather than less, even if that meant that, we wouldn't have as many teams in the Champions League or wouldn't. It's a tension when you have a league with, one club playing in a completely different poker game than the rest. It doesn't work all that well, and it's beginning to break down.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's just crazy. How are we going to fix it? How are we going to fix this, Mr. Hermann? How? But, as long as we're there every Saturday watching with our voice and our beer, I guess things could be worse. You know what I mean? So, all right. Thanks for coming on, bud. I really appreciate it.
Happy to be here.
Anything to plug? You want to plug the podcast or anything?
Of course. Yeah, Talking Foosball. We have shows out every week. These days, the format is we have a second division and lower leagues pod 1 week, and then the following week we talk about the Erste Bundesliga. We also have a great Patreon with old historical content, really, really cool stuff for folks who want to sort of go back in the years. But we've been doing it a long time. Hopefully we'll have the energy and money and time to keep doing it for a while yet.
Well, when this new digital global super platform comes on, that's where we're all moving, right? And they need English language Bundesliga content, so let's get on that app. And there you have it. That's our interview with Mr. Matt Hermann of the Talking Football podcast and formerly of Deutsche Welle. It was a little long. I apologize, but he had so much good stuff to say. I didn't want to cut any of it out.
Yeah, very great. Very good.
Yeah, Bjorn, your thoughts? What do you think?
Yeah, I thought, I'm glad that we agree on how we feel about Alejandro Moreno's ESPN contributions.
100%. In defense of ESPN, the Archie Rintov, like the live on-field interviews that they do, is pretty cool. That's nice.
Yeah, and I think some of the commentary is good. You know, we get to make fun of Derek Ray every once in a while. It's all good. And but yeah, the studio stuff is pretty forgettable. I agree with him. I enjoyed his perspective, you know, because it seems like it's not so clear what the fans actually want, but it's just like you were saying, there's just a general sort of lack of trust or just a skepticism as to what these people are up to. And I think that's fair. I think this you know, these ambitions of being a global power or more of a global brand, that always can come at a cost. I mean, in the case of the Premier League, it's gone well, but it's not clear that the Bundesliga has those same options, and if it's just a matter of more investment. So yeah, we'll have to see. But that very interesting. Enjoyed listening to it.
The one thing I guess I don't think about too much is you mentioned that the distribution of TV money is uneven. It's probably fair right now. Like Bayern Munich probably gets most of it because they get the most views.
It's also results based. It's like you get more the higher you finish in the table. Like there's more, yeah.
But remind me, Bjorn, where was Karl Marx from again?
Karl Marx? Which country? Germany.
That's right. Germany, you don't say. So if I remember Union Berlin had posters out where I think they were asking for TV money just to be cut 18 ways. And it's a very Karl Marxian sort of approach to that.
Well, I mean, I think we've talked about this before. This is the irony, right? Like where in America, which is a completely capitalist country, the sports are very socialist, and in Europe, it's the other way around. Yeah, so yeah, I think there is, and the grass is always greener, you know, everywhere else. Here in the U.S., we say, oh, we want pro-rel, we want it to be more like Europe, and then in Europe, you know, people are looking for ways to make it more like the U.S. Have a more, you know, have a super league, have guaranteed spots, and so I think they're really it's a complex thing, and you two did a good job not simplifying it, because it's a complex. You can understand. I mean, even like Matt was saying, you can understand these ambitions. The Premier League is running away with budgets that are multiples of any other league, and so people are trying to keep up. At the same time, the fans are like, well, you're not, you know, we're not interested in that. We're just interested in our experience, our local team. So it'll continue to be an interesting and I mean, it's also like, you know, give somebody $1 billion. Yeah, I mean, yeah. Well,
the other unknown is, I asked him, I'm like, so what is that? Like, what are they going to do with?
Well, and I mean, it's also, you know, you see this with MLS and Apple TV. I mean, MLS is in a way in an easier situation because they don't have anything to lose in some ways. Like the TV money.
They didn't have $1 billion. They had to pull a TV network out of their butt. They didn't get $1 billion seed money for that.
The point that I'm making, it's like the Bundesliga has income, right? Like they do have media. So if they would say, oh, we're going to do away with it, and we're just going to distribute our own content via some kind of, you know, that's also, then where's the money going to come from? They'll have to sell the subscriptions or the advertising or whatever it is.
Pay Ali Moreno from their own.
They have to pay. Yeah, and he ain't cheap, man. So so it's interesting. And plus, also, what I was going to say, also now, you know, it's become just a game of fan bases one-upping each other
Right.
these protests.
How they can disrupt the game.
Yeah, it's not so much like, oh, we have issues, we want to be heard. It's like, oh, we got a toy car with a
Get the
smoke
hot air
bomb on
balloons
it.
in.
Come on.
There should be, the way I would do is have an army of hot air balloons just drop in around the 23rd minute, just like covering the field. I'd be like, watch out.
I mean, even aside from any kind of protest or any kind of issue, but when I was at the Leverkusen game, the Bochum fans just kind of set off a bunch of smoke.
Right.
What are those called? The Bengali
flares.
The flare, or something. And basically, the game had to stop for a couple minutes because there was a smoke cloud. This was just to show their visiting fan muscle. This wasn't tied to any protests or issues, or the fans also just like to assert themselves.
But that's also part of the bigger issue here of the domestic fan versus the international TV fan, right?
Right.
International TV fan wants their TV show, but domestic fan doesn't even watch the game. They just want to get their flares out.
Right.
Just put their smoke up.
Yeah, I mean but this is all of sports, right? There's a lot of reasons to go to a game. You want to watch the thing, you want to have some beers, maybe let off some steam, behave poorly, perhaps a little. There's lots of, and that's all part of it. The other thing I was going to say is, we kind of poo-poo those international ambitions a little bit, and you're like, what do they think? What do they think is going to happen with the Bundesliga? But on the flip side, you have to say, if you had told me like, I don't know, 10 years ago that the Premier League was going to have fan fests and people in Kansas and all would come in full kit Crystal Palace outfits and be like, I'm a diehard fan of this team that is like 1,000 miles away. Like, it can be done. And and there is a tension there, of course, between obviously the locals are like, who are these people? But at the same time, it's a thing. There's a lot of potential.
Ted Lasso, right?
There's a potential. There's a lot of potential out there, and so I guess we'll just have to see how this all shakes out.
It culminated to Ted Lasso. The TV show is Ted Lasso, about American and British cultures combining over football, soccer, and it just got so popular that they made America's #1 TV show on it for a couple of seasons. What I mean? So England has been just crushing it, and the Prem has just been going from strength to strength every season, just making themselves a thing here. And the other leagues can't help but be like, especially like La Liga, they're just like, what? How do we do that? So they're trying to figure it out. Anywho, we're at hour 20. It was a little long, but
we'll make our MLS preview very quick.
No. We'll problem. All right, everybody. This is me, right? We are saying goodbye to the Germany hour, but we're hopping over to the USA hour, the other room. Come join. We're talking MLS, talking NYCFC. We're talking US Open Cup.
Season starts Wednesday.